Nearly 2 years after a car barreled through an Austin emergency room, hitting and injuring a couple and their 2 young children. And the family at the center is finally getting some closure. This week on Inside the Investigation, investigative reporter Matt Grant shares a major update for the family, a settlement with the hospital. Welcome to Inside the Investigation. You are inside the Investigates office right now. I'm investigative reporter Kelly Wiley, and I'm here with my colleague Matt Grant. How are you?
Good, Kelly. Thanks so much for having me. Always a pleasure.
Always nice having you. And today you're giving us an update on your investigation, Preventing Disaster. But before we do that, for those people at home who maybe are not familiar with this reporting, remind us of what happened at St. David's Hospital in 2024.
Yeah, this was a really sad and tragic case, and according to the attorney who was involved with it, entirely preventable. So what happened was in February of 2024, there was a woman, we later learned through toxicology, was heavily intoxicated. She drove through the entrance, the emergency room entrance of St. David's North Austin Medical Center. The vehicle went upwards of like 40 miles an hour through the front doors into a fish tank, and then it came to a stop against the wall. At the fish tank at the time were the Bernard family, a family of 4 with 2 toddlers. They were run over by the vehicle. The driver was killed. The family of 4, the Bernards, were seriously hurt, and another bystander who was in the lobby at the time was also hurt. And what happened was this case raised serious questions about security. Could it have been prevented? What we started digging into at the time, we went out to Texas A&M's Transportation Institute to study and look at bollards and the importance of crash-rated, crash-tested bollards. Those are those steel concrete posts that you see oftentimes around, gas station pumps or in front of businesses. And experts that we've talked to say when they're designed properly and when they're tested, they can prevent vehicle crashes. And they were not present at St. David's at the time. And so the family, they spent time in the hospital. It took months to recover, and they're still dealing with the effects of it. They're still not fully recovered. But this lawsuit that they filed for more than $1 million against St. David's accused the hospital of gross negligence for not having those security features at the time.
And that's where our update kind of comes in. Tell us about the update in that lawsuit specifically. And by the way, Matt broke this story while on vacation.
Yeah.
And so tell us what's happened.
Yeah, it was busy. So a couple months after the crash happened in 2024, the family, as I mentioned, they filed a lawsuit for more than $1 million. There wasn't a specified amount, just for more than $1 million. And it's really been working its way through the court system since. It's been contentious. And the hospital has denied any wrongdoing, and there were depositions going on. The trial was actually supposed to start in January this month. And what we found out, the story that we broke was that in mid to late December, the case had quietly settled. We found that out through court records. And we called, when I was on vacation, I called the lead attorney for the case. His name is Sean Breen, and he did not comment. So we don't know, it's all confidential. So we don't know the details of the settlement. We don't know how much is or was paid to the family, just that the parties agreed to something. And he would not comment on the case at all. But he did confirm that it had settled. I reached out to St. David's, and they also, so far, we have not heard back from them. So they are not commenting one way or the other on the case.
Very interesting. It's been such a long time coming. It's been a while since this crash. So to hear that, at least for this family, there's some level of, I would hope, closure for them. It seems like a positive development.
I hope so. When we talked to the family, their biggest message to me was, and they had spoken out just to it. They had spoken out just to us. Mm-hmm. And their big message was, we're doing this because we don't want to see what happened to us happen to anyone else ever again. And so if it's possible, we would love to talk with them again and get their reaction to the case settling and get their reaction to everything. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I have to imagine from their standpoint that that they are probably pleased that all of this is behind them at this point.
Yeah, and you mentioned that the lead attorney on the case, did not give a comment on the settlement in specific, but he did give us a comment about your reporting, and I want to read that to you. He said, "I represented the Bernard family against St. David and its parent company, HCA. I witnessed the investigative reporting of Matt Grant as he brought that important story to the public and policymakers. These are the things that stood out to me about Matt and his work: his passion, desiring to ask why and find out what others hide, his resilience to pursue where the facts took him, and his fearlessness." And I want to talk to you about that because you have worked on this case and done so many stories on it. What do you think about his comments about just your doggedness in pursuing this?
That's very kind. It's the first time that I'm hearing what he had to say. It's very nice of him. Really, we're just doing our job. I mean, when this happened, as investigative journalists, our first question is, how could something like this happen? Could it have been prevented? What went wrong? And so that's what kicked off what turned out to be, more than year-long series of reports that we did, looking at just not how things are and were at St. David's and looking at crash-tested ballers by talking to experts, but looking at other hospitals too. Remember, we surveyed dozens of hospitals all over Central Texas. And then we started collecting data on crashes all over the country. And we worked with an organization that tracks these crashes, the Storefront Safety Council. We partnered with them. We built our own database using some of their data that we vetted and our own that we put together with our producers. And we really wanted to get a broader picture of, how safe are hospitals, how common are these type of crashes. And we found that they're not uncommon. They've happened hundreds of times over the past decade. Similar types of crashes involving medical sites. So while what he had to say is very kind and much appreciated, for me, we were just doing our job, and hopefully through our series, we were able to make the public aware that these type of crashes do happen, and experts say can be prevented with the right security measures.
And to that point, there's this settlement for the family that on a personal level we hope brings them closure, but there's been a lot of movement as far as laws and regulations that have come out of your reporting. Walk us through what exists now, law-wise, regulation-wise, after your investigation.
Yeah, so that year, at the end of 2024, the Austin City Council voted on a measure that was introduced by former council member Mackenzie Kelly to require crash-rated bollards at new hospitals in the city. And that was directly in response to our reporting. We had showed Mackenzie Kelly, Vanessa Fuentes, we showed them our reporting, and both said that they wanted to do something about it. And former council member Kelly, in the middle of watching our story and the interview with the Bernards, she stopped and paused and turned to her staff and said, "Can we initiate an ordinance on this right away?" And that ordinance was the one that passed in December 2024 unanimously. So that was, it was nice to see our reporting have an impact. Hopefully it will make future hospitals safer. It's not retroactive. There was a bill that was introduced last year at the state capitol that would have expanded that measure statewide. It received a lot of pushback, particularly from the hospital industry lobby. They felt it was an unfair cost burden, that hospitals are already regulated, that the measure was not needed, and it got pretty far, but it did not ultimately pass. I believe the author of the bill, Royce West, plans to refile that bill again next year, but of course we'll be checking in with his office to see, and we'll be following any new developments along the way. But yeah, our series definitely kicked off a conversation, and other cities too had mentioned that they were exploring the possibility of similar ordinances. So right now it's a patchwork system. Different cities, unless there's a law that comes about, different cities will have to create their own framework. But there are no national guidelines or recommendations regarding hospitals and bollards. So really, at the moment, it's just up to individual private hospitals to make that call on their own.
And I just want to say, I feel like great reporting, it tells you about things that are happening in the world and opens your eyes to things that you previously were not focused on. Your reporting, we were afterwards, all of us were noticing where bollards were and where they were not, right? Like all of a sudden you kind of got a new lens that you're looking through and considering safety. And I remember the tragedy that happened in New Orleans on Bourbon Street also happened following your reporting, and it played a part in how we examined what happened there and what accountability questions we asked about what protections and safety measures existed in that area. And so your reporting did more, I think, than just spark conversations and laws, but also just kind of changed our idea of how we approach safety reporting. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for talking to me about this.
If you want to watch all new episodes of Inside the Investigation, just go to the KXAN app every Friday starting at 1 p.m. Just search for KXAN on your preferred streaming devices such as Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV. You can also listen to KXAN's Investigative podcast, where we feature audio versions of our weekly Inside the Investigation episodes. You can find new episodes every Saturday morning wherever you get podcasts. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.